The alien empress stood on the crystalline platform, her three eyes scanning the assembled crowd of suitors from 40 different species. Her daughter, barely reaching her waist, clutched a golden sphere that pulsed with bioluminescent patterns. Commander Jake Morrison felt the weight of every gaze in the chamber. He wasn't supposed to be here. His mission was simple: deliver the treaty documents, shake some hands, get back to the fleet. But the Xantharian Diplomatic Corps had insisted all visiting dignitaries attend the selection ceremony. "The child will choose," the Empress announced, her voice resonating through translators embedded in the walls. "Whoever she selects becomes my consort and co-ruler of the Xantharian Empire." Jake shifted uncomfortably in his dress uniform. Around him stood representatives from the galaxy's most powerful civilizations. The Krathens with their armored exoskeletons. The Vorlani energy beings crackling with barely contained power. The Hectara diplomats whose mental abilities could bend steel. The little girl descended the steps, sphere held high. She moved past the Krethan ambassador who bowed so low his head scraped the floor. Past the Vorlani who dimmed their light in respectful greeting. Past the towering Hectari whose telepathic whispers promised worlds and wonders. She stopped directly in front of Jake. Her small hand reached up and touched his leg. The sphere exploded with light. "No," Jake said immediately. "There's been a mistake." The chamber erupted. Voices overlapped in dozens of languages. The Krethan ambassador's mandibles clacked with fury. The Vorlani's light intensified until guards had to shield their eyes. The Hectare launched a telepathic assault that Jake felt as pressure against his temples. "The selection is final," the Empress said, and the room fell silent. Her voice carried absolute authority. "The sphere has confirmed compatibility. The human will undergo the trials." "Trials?" Jake's hand instinctively moved toward his sidearm. "3 tests," the Empress continued. "Combat, wisdom, and sacrifice. Failure means death. Success means the throne." Her expression remained unreadable. "You have 1 hour to prepare, human." The first trial begins at sunset. The guards surrounded him before he could protest. They escorted him through corridors that seemed to shift and breathe, past windows showing 3 moons rising over an ocean of liquid mercury. His mind raced through options. Call the fleet? Start an interstellar incident? Run? They stopped at a preparation chamber. Inside, weapons lined every wall, blades that hummed with energy, projectile launchers that defied physics, armor that seemed alive. "Choose wisely," one guard said in halting English. "The arena shows no mercy to the unprepared." Jake stared at the arsenal. Somewhere above, the Empress waited. Her daughter had chosen him for reasons he couldn't fathom, and in less than an hour he would face the first trial. He reached for the simplest weapon he could find. A smile crossed his face. They had no idea what humans were capable of. The arena floor burned under twin suns. Jake stepped through the gateway wearing minimal armor and carrying only a combat knife and a coil of synthetic rope. The crowd's roar hit him like a physical wave. "The human refuses proper equipment," the announcer's voice boomed. "Foolish or confident, we shall see." Across the sand, a gate rose. What emerged made Jake's blood run cold. The Krethan champion stood 12 feet tall, covered in biomechanical armor that had never been breached in 300 trials. Plasma cannons extended from its shoulders. Blades as long as Jake's leg protruded from its forearms. The creature charged. Jake didn't run. He dropped low, letting the first blade swing pass over his head by inches. The second strike came for his midsection. He rolled right, feeling the heat as plasma scorched the sand where he'd stood. The crowd screamed. They wanted blood. They would get it. The Krethan's size was its weakness. Jake had fought bigger. He'd faced combat mechs in the Titan Wars, danced with death in zero-gravity boarding actions. This thing was strong and armored, but it moved with predictable patterns. Jake sprinted left, then cut hard right. The champion's plasma cannon tracked too slowly. Jake slid under its legs, rope already in motion. He looped it around the creature's ankle joints where armor segments met. The Krethan spun, confused. Jake yanked hard. Nothing happened. The creature was too heavy. A blade came down. Jake abandoned the rope and dove forward, tucking into a roll that brought him up inside the champion's guard. His knife found the gap between chest and arm plating. He drove it deep into the hydraulic systems. Blue fluid sprayed. The right arm went limp. The Crethan roared and backhanded Jake with its remaining functional arm. He flew 15 feet, hit the sand hard enough to see stars. His ribs screamed. Blood filled his mouth. The champion advanced, moving faster now, enraged, its remaining plasma cannon charged with a high-pitched whine. Jake forced himself up. His vision swam. The crowd noise became a distant buzz. He had seconds before that cannon vaporized him. He ran straight at the Crethan. The creature fired. Jake dropped into a baseball slide. Sand spraying a superheated plasma turned the air above him into fire. He passed between the champion's legs, grabbed the trailing rope, and as he slid clear, he pulled with everything he had. The rope went taut around damaged ankle joints. The Crethan toppled backward like a felled tree. 12 feet and 2 tons of alien warrior hit the arena floor with a sound like thunder. Before it could recover, Jake was on its chest, knife reversed in his grip. He drove the blade through the eye slit in its helmet. The champion went still. Jake stood, chest heaving, blood dripping from a cut above his eye. The arena fell silent. Then the crowd exploded. Not with anger, but with something Jake didn't expect. Approval. Respect. The Empress rose from her seat. The human survives through cunning and courage. These are qualities we value. She gestured. Take him to the healing chambers. The trial of wisdom begins at dawn. Guards escorted Jake from the arena. Behind him, medical teams swarmed the fallen Crethan. The creature would live, but its pride was shattered. In the healing chamber, technology Jake barely understood knitted his ribs and sealed his wounds. Attendant brought water and food that his scanner confirmed was safe for human consumption. You surprised everyone, the attendant said. She was Zintharian, younger than the Empress, with kind eyes. Most champions rely on strength. You used intelligence. I'm a soldier, not a warrior, Jake said between bites. There's a difference. What difference? Warriors seek glory. Soldiers seek victory. He drained the water container. What's the trial of wisdom? Questions, she said. The kind with no right answers. The kind that reveal who you truly are. She paused at the door. The Empress wants to know if you're worthy of her daughter's choice. Many think the child made a mistake. Maybe she did. Maybe. The attendant smiled. But the spear has never been wrong, not in 10,000 years of selections. She left him alone with his thoughts. Jake stared at his reflection on the polished wall. Dried blood still stained his collar. His knuckles were raw. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, and he still had no idea why a child he'd never met had chosen him from among the galaxy's elite. But he was still alive, and humans didn't quit. Dawn broke over crystalline spires that sang in the wind. Jake stood in a circular chamber with walls that showed impossible geometries, angles that hurt to look at directly. The Empress sat on a throne that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions, simultaneously. Her daughter played with the golden sphere in a corner, occasionally glancing at Jake with unreadable, three-eyed stares. The trial of wisdom begins, the Empress said. You will answer 3 questions. Lie, and sensors will detect it. Refuse to answer, and you fail. Speak truth, and we shall see what truth reveals. Jake stood at attention. His uniform had been cleaned and repaired overnight. The healing chamber had erased all physical damage, but his mind remained sharp with alertness. First question. The Empress leaned forward. A ship carries 1,000 souls. Its life support will fail in 1 hour. You can save 500 by sacrificing the other 500 immediately, giving the survivors enough resources to reach safety. Or you can wait, hoping for rescue that may never come, and lose everyone. What do you do? Every diplomat in the galaxy would dance around this answer. Jake knew the game. Give a political response. Talk about alternatives and hope, and never actually answer. He'd never been good at politics. I sacrificed the 500, Jake said. The words fell like stones. I make the choice so no one else has to carry that weight. Then I put myself on the list of those who don't make it. The Empress's expression didn't change. You would kill yourself? I would die with those I condemned. 500 saved is better than 1,000 dead. But the person who makes that call doesn't deserve to benefit from it. Murmurs rippled through the observation galleries above. The daughter stopped playing and watched him intently. Second question. The Empress's voice grew colder. My empire spans 40 systems. Your Earth has resources we need. I offer fair trade, but your government refuses. I can take what I need by force, killing millions, or withdraw and let my own people suffer without those resources. What should I do? This was a trap. Every answer condemned someone. You're asking the wrong question, Jake said. The chamber went silent. Explain, the Empress commanded. The question assumes only two options exist. That's how empires think, and it's why they eventually fall. Jake met her gaze. I'd ask what Earth needs that your empire has. I'd find the third path where both peoples benefit, without conquest or suffering. And if that truly doesn't exist, I'd look at whether my empire's need is genuine survival, or just comfortable continuation of current practices. You would let your own people suffer to avoid harming others? I'd challenge the assumption that those are the only choices. Humans didn't reach the stars by accepting false dilemmas. We got here by rejecting the premise that problems only have bad solutions. The Empress studied him for a long moment. Her daughter had moved closer, the sphere pulsing with light. Third question. The Empress stood, and Jake realized how truly alien she was. Her form seemed to shift subtly, as if she existed partially out of phase with normal space. Why did my daughter choose you? Jake blinked. I don't know. The sensors indicate truth. But you must have a theory. No theory. No guess. Jake shook his head. I'm a military commander. I deliver documents and make sure treaties get signed. I'm not royalty. I'm not a diplomat. I'm not special in any way that would matter to an empire. He glanced at the child. Maybe she saw something I don't see in myself. Maybe the sphere malfunctioned. Maybe it's all random chance. You truly believe you're not special? I believe I'm competent at my job. Special implies something beyond that. The Empress descended from her throne. She approached until she stood directly in front of Jake, towering over him by 2 feet. Her 3 eyes examined him like a specimen under glass. Every other suitor told elaborate lies about their worthiness, she said quietly. They spoke of destiny and divine selection and cosmic purpose. The hectare diplomat claimed telepathic bond with my daughter. The Vorlani insisted the sphere recognized their energy signature as superior. She paused. You are the only one who admitted you don't know. Because I don't. Honesty is the rarest resource in the galaxy, Commander Morrison. The Empress stepped back. Rarer than dark matter. More valuable than singularity cores. She returned to her throne. You have passed the trial of wisdom, not through cleverness, but through truth. The final trial begins tomorrow. What's the trial of sacrifice? The Empress's expression finally changed. Something that might have been sadness crossed her features. You will understand when it comes. Rest now. You will need your strength. Guards escorted him out. As Jake left, he heard the daughter's voice, speaking for the first time in a language his translator couldn't process. The Empress responded in kind, and though Jake couldn't understand the words, he heard the emotion. Fear. Whatever tomorrow brought, it terrified even an Empress. The final trial didn't take place in an arena or a chamber. Jake was led to a medical facility deep within the palace complex. The walls here were sterile white, humming with technology that monitored life at the molecular level. The Empress waited inside, but her daughter was absent. "Where's the girl?" Jake asked immediately. "She is the trial," the Empress said. Her voice carried a weight that hadn't been there before. "Sit. I will explain what no suitor has ever been told before they face this moment." Jake sat. Every instinct screamed that something was desperately wrong. "My daughter is dying," the Empress said flatly. "She has been dying since birth. A genetic cascade that no technology can stop, no medical advancement can cure. She has 6 months remaining, perhaps less." The words hit Jake like a physical blow. "Then why the selection ceremony? Why any of this?" "Because the sphere doesn't choose a husband for me." The Empress's composure cracked for the first time. "It chooses a genetic donor who can save my child. The selection, the trials, all of it exists to find someone biologically compatible for a complete cellular transplant. The procedure will rewrite her DNA, replace her dying cells with healthy ones, stop the cascade." Jake's mind raced ahead to the obvious conclusion. "And the donor? Dees." "The process extracts everything. Bone marrow, stem cells, genetic material from every organ system. What remains cannot sustain life." The Empress met his eyes. "This is the trial of sacrifice." Every suitor who reached this point refused. The Cretan champion called it murder. The Vorlani considered it beneath them. The Hektar tried to negotiate a partial extraction that wouldn't work. "You let me fight in the arena knowing this was coming?" "I let you prove your worth first. I needed to know if the sphere chose correctly, if you possessed not just biological compatibility, but the character to deserve such a choice." The Empress's hands trembled. "I have sent 43 suitors to their deaths over the years, Commander. 43 people who reached this moment and refused. My daughter grows weaker with each failed selection." Jake stood and walked to the observation window. Beyond it lay a room with a single medical pod. The technology looked human-designed, heavily modified with alien components. "You built this knowing you'd have to ask someone to die. I built this knowing I would do anything to save my child, even beg." The Empress's voice broke. "Even ask a stranger to give his life for a girl he's never spoken to. Does she know? She knows she's sick. She doesn't know the cost of her cure. I won't let her carry that burden." Jake pressed his hand against the glass. He thought of his own niece back on Earth, bright eyes and endless questions. He thought of the crews he'd commanded, the soldiers who'd followed him into battles where death was always possible. He thought of the oath he'd taken to protect humanity and its allies. "If I refuse, you return to your ship. The alliance between Earth and the Zintharian Empire continues as planned. No consequences, no judgment. You walked further than anyone else. You owe us nothing." "And your daughter?" "We search for another compatible donor. The sphere will select again next year, and the year after, until time runs out or we find someone willing." The Empress's voice went hollow. "She asks about you. Wants to know why the human looks sad. I tell her you're just tired from the trials." Jake turned from the window. "I need to see her first." The Empress led him through corridors to a garden that shouldn't exist inside a palace. Real grass grew under artificial sunlight. Flowers bloomed in colors Earth had never produced. The daughter sat by a fountain, still clutching her golden sphere. She looked up as they approached. Her 3 eyes widened, with what Jake recognized as joy despite the alien features. "You came back," she said in perfect English. The translator had taught her overnight. "Mother said you were very brave in the arena." Jake knelt beside her. Up close, he could see the signs: skin too pale, movements too careful, the exhaustion that came from a body fighting itself. "What's your name?" he asked. "Lyria." She held up the sphere. "This knew you were special. It showed me in dreams. You don't run from scary things. Sometimes running is the smart choice. But you don't." She smiled, and it was the smile of every child who still believed the universe was good. "You stay and fight. Mother says that's what heroes do." Jake's throat tightened. Your mother is very smart." They talked for an hour. Lyria showed him her favorite flowers and explained the palace's history in the scattered way children do, jumping between topics without transitions. She told him about her tutors and her studies, and how she hoped to see Earth someday because humans had sent pictures of something called dogs, and she thought they looked wonderful. The Empress watched from a distance, her expression unreadable. When Lyria tired, servants took her for rest. The Empress and Jake walked back toward the medical facility in silence. "The procedure," Jake finally said. "How long does it take?" "You'll be unconscious, no pain." "And she'll be cured completely?" "The genetic cascade will stop. She'll live a full life, rule an empire." See those dogs she talked about. The Empress stopped walking. "I cannot order you to do this. I can only ask as a mother who has exhausted every other option." Jake stood at the threshold of the medical facility. Behind that door lay a choice that would end his life or end a child's. No middle ground. No clever third option like he'd suggested in the Trial of Wisdom. Just a binary decision that would define what humanity meant in this moment. "I have one condition," Jake said. "Name it. You tell her the truth when she's old enough. Not now, but someday. She deserves to know what this cost." The Empress's eyes glistened with tears. "I promise." Jake nodded and walked through the door. Jake woke up. That was the first surprise. He wasn't supposed to wake up. The Empress had been clear about the cost, absolute about the outcome. 4 hours of extraction, and then nothing. But he was breathing. His heart was beating, and pain radiated through every cell of his body like he'd been torn apart and reassembled wrong. He forced his eyes open. The medical facility's ceiling swam into focus. Monitors beeped steadily. An IV line ran into his arm, pumping something that glowed faintly blue. The Empress sat beside his bed. She looked like she'd aged a decade overnight. "You're awake," she said, and her voice carried shock. "You shouldn't be awake. You should be dead." "What happened?" Jake's voice came out as a rasp. "We don't know. The procedure went exactly as designed. We extracted what we needed. Your vital signs flatlined. We prepared your body for the funeral rites Earth custom requires." She leaned forward. "Then 6 hours later, your heart started beating again. Slowly at first, then stronger. Your brain activity returned. Cellular regeneration began at a rate our technology can't explain." Jake tried to sit up. His muscles screamed in protest, but they worked. "Lyria? Alive. Healthy. The genetic cascade has stopped. She's sleeping now, her body adjusting to the new cellular matrix." The Empress studied him like he was a puzzle with missing pieces. "But you're the impossible part, Commander. Humans don't spontaneously regenerate from complete systemic failure. Nothing does." A Xantharian medical officer entered, carrying a data tablet that projected holographic readouts. "Empress, the analysis is complete. You need to see this." The hologram showed Jake's cellular structure in 3 dimensions, rotating slowly. Even without medical training, Jake could see something was different. His cells looked wrong, somehow both human and not. "During the extraction, something unexpected occurred," the medical officer explained. "The cellular transplant wasn't one-directional. When we transferred Commander Morrison's genetic material to the princess, trace amounts of her DNA integrated into his system. The Xantharian healing factor, designed to combat the genetic cascade, activated in his body." "That's impossible," the Empress said. "The healing factor was the problem. It accelerated the cascade in my daughter because her variant was corrupted. In a human body, it should have done nothing or killed him faster. Should have, yes. But human DNA has something our species lacks. Adaptability, mutation resistance. The ability to incorporate foreign genetic elements and stabilize them." The medical officer highlighted sections of the hologram. "His cells are rewriting themselves in real time, integrating Xantharian regenerative capabilities with human flexibility. He's becoming something new, something that shouldn't exist." Jake processed this through the fog of pain and confusion. You're saying I'm part alien now? Approximately 17% Xenterian at cellular level, and the percentage is increasing slowly, the medical officer confirmed. Your human DNA is dominant and appears to be controlling the integration. You'll retain human appearance and function, but with enhanced healing capabilities, extended lifespan, and resistance to genetic degradation. How long? Jake asked. We estimate you'll live approximately 400 years, assuming no fatal trauma. Your body will age slowly, maintain peak physical condition for the first 2 centuries. The medical officer paused. You are the first successful human-Xenterian hybrid. Accidental, but successful. The Empress dismissed the medical officer with a gesture. When they were alone, she spoke quietly. I didn't know this would happen. I asked you to die for my daughter, not to become something other than human. Is Lyria really okay? Completely cured. She'll wake soon asking for you, she's been worried. The Empress stood and walked to the window. You gave her your life, and somehow kept your own. I don't know if that's fortune or curse. Jake finally managed to sit up fully. His body protested but obeyed. Can I still go home? Back to Earth? You're free to leave whenever you're strong enough to travel. The treaty is signed. The alliance stands. You owe the Xenterian Empire nothing more. She turned to face him. But Earth may see you differently now. 17% alien, enhanced capabilities, a living example of human-Xenterian integration. They'll study me like a lab specimen. Probably, or they'll celebrate you as proof of humanity's potential. Or they'll fear you as something no longer purely human. The Empress approached the bed. You have a third option, stay here. You passed all 3 trials, including one that should have killed you. By law and tradition, you've earned the right to co-rule. To help raise the daughter you saved, I'm a soldier, not a king. You're whatever you choose to be now, Commander Morrison. That's the gift and burden of becoming something unprecedented. A soft chime interrupted them. The medical officer's voice came through the room's communication system. Empress, the princess is awake. She's asking for the human. The Empress looked at Jake with an expression that mixed gratitude, uncertainty, and something else. Hope, perhaps. Can you walk? She asked. Jake swung his legs off the bed. Standing took effort, but his enhanced cells were already working. Pain faded with each breath. Strength returned faster than it should. I can walk. They made their way through corridors that felt different now. Jake noticed details he'd missed before. The crystalline walls weren't just decorative. They carried data streams visible at certain angles. The air itself tasted of minerals that Earth didn't have. His hybrid senses were already adapting, showing him a universe his fully human self had only partially perceived. Lyria's room was filled with sunlight. She sat up in bed, the golden sphere resting in her lap. When she saw Jake, her 3 eyes went wide. You're okay, she said, relief flooding her voice. Mother said you were sick. That the trials hurt you. Jake sat on the edge of her bed. I'm better now. How do you feel? Different. Good, different. Like I can breathe all the way for the first time. She touched his hand. Thank you for staying. Most people leave after the trials. The Empress stood in the doorway, watching them both. Jake looked at the child who had chosen him with a sphere that predicted compatibility neither of them understood. At the Empress who had asked the impossible and received it, at the life he'd left behind on Earth and the one being offered here, he thought about duty and sacrifice and the strange paths that led soldiers to thrones. I'm not going anywhere, Jake said. 6 months later, Jake stood on a balcony overlooking the capital city as 3 moons rose in perfect alignment. Behind him, the palace hummed with preparations for the coronation ceremony. Tomorrow, he would officially become co-ruler of the Xenterian Empire. Tonight, he allowed himself to feel the weight of everything that had changed. His body had stabilized at 19% Xenterian integration. The medical officers said it would stay there permanently. He looked human, mostly, but his reflexes were faster now, his senses sharper, his mind processing information at speeds that felt almost telepathic. Earth had requested his return 3 times. He declined each time. "You're thinking too much again," Lyria said from the doorway. She looked healthier than ever, growing stronger each day. "Mother says humans do that when they're nervous." "Your mother is usually right." Jake turned from the view. "Shouldn't you be sleeping? Tomorrow's a big day." "Can't sleep. Too excited." She joined him at the railing, the golden sphere tucked under her arm. She carried it everywhere now, a reminder of the choice that had saved her life. "Are you scared? Terrified? Good. Mother says leaders who aren't scared make bad decisions." Lyria looked up at him with 3 eyes that saw more than they should. "The sphere told me something new last night." "What did it say?" "That it didn't make a mistake. That you were always supposed to be here." She held up the sphere, and its light pulsed in patterns Jake had learned to recognize as contentment. "It knew you'd survive. Knew you'd stay. It just had to wait for you to figure it out, too." Jake knelt to her level. "You know the sphere can't actually talk, right? Maybe not to you." She smiled with the confidence of a child who knew secrets adults couldn't grasp. "But I listen better." The Empress emerged onto the balcony wearing ceremonial robes that shifted colors with her movements. She'd softened over the months, the desperate edge that had defined her replaced with something resembling peace. Lyria bed. Now, no arguments. "Fine." Lyria hugged Jake quickly, then ran inside, sphere bouncing against her side. The Empress joined Jake at the railing. They stood in comfortable silence, watching the city lights flicker like captured stars. "The Earth delegation arrived an hour ago," she said eventually. "They want to speak with you before the ceremony." "I know. They want me to come home. Say this was all a mistake, that I can be cured, returned to fully human." Jake's voice carried no bitterness, just acceptance. "They don't understand that I don't want to be cured." "Do you regret it? Any of it?" Jake thought about the arena, and the impossible questions, and the moment he'd chosen to die. He thought about waking up changed, about learning to rule an empire he'd never wanted, about a child who'd chosen him for reasons a sphere understood better than anyone. "No regrets," he said. "I came here to deliver documents. Instead, I found something worth staying for. Tomorrow you become co-ruler of 40 systems. Eventually, when Lyria is old enough, you'll help her lead an empire that spans a quarter of the galaxy." The Empress turned to face him. "That's a long way from delivering treaty documents." "Soldiers go where they're needed. Turns out, I was needed here more than I knew." "And when Earth needs you, when humanity calls for their transformed son to return, then I'll serve both peoples. Bridge the gap between human and Xantharian. Show them that different doesn't mean incompatible." Jake met her eyes. "Isn't that what this alliance was supposed to be about anyway?" The Empress smiled, genuine and warm. "You're already thinking like a ruler. I'm thinking like a soldier who found a new mission." Inside the palace, musicians began rehearsing for tomorrow's ceremony. The sound drifted through open windows, alien instruments playing melodies that Jake's hybrid mind found beautiful instead of strange. "She chose well," the Empress said quietly. "The sphere, or Lyria, or fate, or whatever combination of factors brought you here. They chose exactly right. I just showed up and tried not to die. That's all any of us can do. The extraordinary part is that you succeeded at both." Jake looked out over the city that would partially be his responsibility come morning. Millions of lives depending on decisions he'd helped make. Treaties to negotiate, policies to shape. A daughter to help raise, and an empire to help guide. It should have terrified him. Maybe it did, a little. But Jake had learned something in 6 months of becoming something new. Humanity's strength wasn't in remaining unchanged. It was in adapting to impossible situations and thriving anyway, in taking broken pieces and building something better. In facing trials designed to kill and finding ways to survive. That was the real meaning of humanity. Not genetic purity or unchanged tradition, but the stubborn refusal to accept that any situation was truly hopeless. "Tomorrow changes everything," the Empress said. "Tomorrow continues what already started." Jake straightened from the railing. A human and a Xantharian ruling together, showing the galaxy that barriers only exist until someone's brave enough to cross them, or until a child points at a stranger and a sphere confirms the impossible. That too. They returned inside together. The palace bustled with final preparations. Lyria was supposedly asleep, but Jake could hear her whispering to the sphere in her room. The Earth delegation waited in guest quarters, prepared to make their case tomorrow. 40 systems worth of representatives would arrive by dawn to witness the coronation. Jake Morrison, human soldier turned hybrid ruler, walked through halls that were becoming home. Tomorrow he would wear a crown and swear oaths in a language he was still learning. He would stand beside an empress and a child, and promise to protect an empire he'd stumbled into by accident. But tonight, he was simply a man who'd been asked to make an impossible choice, and found that sometimes impossibility was just another word for opportunity. Somewhere in the palace, the golden sphere pulsed with light. It had chosen correctly, after all. Humanity had come to the stars not to conquer, but to prove that even in a galaxy of wonders, humans remain the most adaptable species of all. One soldier at a time, one impossible choice at a time.